Hey, everybody in the Owwll community. Welcome to another amazing episode here on the Owwll podcast. Every week, we bring you some of the most impactful people in the world coming to this studio, talking about how they're making an impact to the next generation of folks joining us out there in the business community. Joined by my co-host, Ellie Santra, one of my favorite musicians to my left over here. Ellie, what is happening in the musician world before we get into our guest today?
I mean, the musician world in general, I'm not
Yeah, what's
keeping
happening?
that much track of. I'm just focused on myself. I'm working on an album right now. When I'm not here at the office, I'm in the studio getting ready so I can go on tour, so we can go on the Owwll tour when we blow
We'll
up.
have the Owwll tour one day. We'll have the Owwll House, which will be called the Nest. Then we're going to tour the United States and go state to state talking about the impact of relationships, because everything's going down the direction of no relationships, AI, TikTok, Instagram, and we need to fix that by talking to one another once again through the Owwll app and technologies like Owwll. Do you agree?
I agree. And when we're going to have the Owwll theme song coming soon, it is done. I just have to produce it. So
Okay,
that's
well,
exciting.
before we get into our guests, we have a big announcement. On June 25th, we are starting Tech Tuesdays with South Florida Tech Hub. So what that is going to mean is that Nikki, who is the CEO of South Florida Tech Hub, is going to come to the studio with her team. And how cool is this? From 10 to 12, you could call her team right through the Owwll app one-on-one for $1. And then from 12 to 1, there'll be a new, host of this show. And there will be a tech trailblazer from South Florida. Then every hour after that, there'll be another host of the show. And then at 5:30, we're heading over to a happy hour sponsored by South Florida Tech Hub. And we are partnering with them, and they will be on the top line of the app. We've never done this before. They will be the first group recognized in our local area, which is awesome. And we're really going to promote just connecting with one another through the Owwll app for Tech Tuesdays.
And
Pretty
if
darn
that
cool.
goes well, that being said, if you guys are listening and you have a large group, a community that you think would be a good fit to have its own category on the Owwll app, please reach out to us. We are open to your ideas.
Okay, let's get into our guest today. Ellie, do us the
Yes.
honors.
So today we have Jimmy Everett. He is the owner of Driftwood Restaurant in Boynton Beach, a place that I've passed by many times, and now I'm excited to go. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Jimmy, how you got started in the restaurant industry to where you are now.
Yeah, well, first of all, it's great to be here. And I do hear that a lot. We are the place that people pass by a lot.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's
Well, now
it
you
could be a
have.
good or a bad thing.
Yeah.
Hey, we get the same thing with the mobile app, right? Everyone's like another app, another restaurant, right? And often you have to draw people in. It's all marketing and it's reviews. And eventually you have that breakthrough moment. So we know exactly what you're speaking about.
For us, word of mouth is always the best, you know. But yeah. So I mean, I was actually born about a mile from Driftwood. So going way back, that's where, you know, it kind of starts. Obviously.
Yeah.
So I am you know, very much a local. But I did leave. I moved out of Florida when I was 17. So after high school, I did move out of Florida to go to culinary school. I had kind of like a rough patch in high school, so I had a little bit of trouble. I was definitely not going
to college,
the route my parents wanted, not to the traditional college.
Yeah.
I did end up I was lucky, and I had a culinary instructor at my high school, my second high school. I got kicked out of the first one, but the second high school I went to, I had a culinary instructor that really helped me. At that point, I was working in restaurants, so I was already in restaurants since I was 15. And so when it was coming time to finish up high school, my culinary instructor kind of convinced me to, rather than just go to the Florida Culinary or one of the smaller local culinary school, to apply to the CIA, the Culinary Institute of America, which at the time was, there was like two big schools in the country. It was NECI and then the CIA at the time. So she helped me figure that out. So that got me out of Florida, which was honestly like one of the biggest steps, amongst kids my age. That was always the hardest thing, just getting out of Florida.
Yeah.
And so I was gone for about 12 years. I obviously completed the CIA, my associate's degree, and I went on a externship throughout that time on Nantucket Island. So I spent some time up there, Cape Cod area. And then pretty much, I came back to finish up at the CIA and graduated. And then I kind of took some time off. I went to California, went to eat at the French Laundry and Bouchon. At the time that was like, that was the best restaurant in the country at the time. So it was, I saved up all my money, spent it all, and then had to figure out how to make money to get back.
Why California? It was just because of those restaurants, or like you just had always wanted to go there, or what was?
I had family. I had my sister and brother-in-law. They moved out there.
Okay,
so that was kind of like the initial, and they're like, yeah, we want to come out and stay with us. So there was the convenience of that.
Yeah.
And then, but yeah, once we were out there, once I made it out there, I was there for about 3 or 4 months.
Okay.
I wanted to look for a job, but I don't think I really got too far because I was just busy this is my first time in California.
Yeah.
So
exploring.
Yeah, exactly. And then I ended up making it back to New York. So, but went to the city. So, again, with not much money, but I was sleeping on people's couches and stuff like that. The way a lot of people started in New York, I think. And, one of my friends whose couch I was crashing on, he was working at a restaurant, and a restaurant called Tabla, that's no longer open, but it was right next door to a restaurant called Love Madison Park. So he said that he had heard that, Love Madison Park was, I think, #1 in the world multiple years. I think it's currently the first fully vegan restaurant to receive 3 Michelin stars.
Oh, wow.
It was not vegan when I was there, just to be clear. But essentially that was the beginning of their very long path to greatness, I suppose. So I was a part of that, which was exciting. And then the reason I initially moved to New York, though, was to work at a place called WD-50, because that was, when was this, like 2005? Okay. They were known as the, I guess, I don't want to say, the molecular gastronomy, that title that kind of, I guess, think of like spherification and foams and all the weird stuff. People, call.
Oh, so they were like the hip, kind of like interesting,
hip but very scientific. It wasn't just like a trendy thing. It was Wiley. He's definitely one of my that restaurant. That was the one restaurant that really jump started my career as a chef rather than a cook. I'd already been cooking for quite a few years at that point, but that was where I was starting to think like a chef. That's what that restaurant taught me, because everything, there was some stuff was very technical, down to like the 10th of a gram. And the technique was very specific for different things. So for me, I just wanted to learn how to do those things. Like there was, I'd eaten there in culinary school. That's what kind of triggered everything. And there was it's called carrot and coconut sunny side up, where it was like you just get a plate that looks like a sunny side up egg, but the white is coconut, the yolk that you can pierce with a fork and it spills.
You're making us hungry.
I know.
Me and Ellie are trying to be good on our diet over here.
I know.
And every day we're like, no more unhealthy food, but every day we want it, of course.
Yeah, I mean,
and then we're always getting introduced to amazing restaurants locally. We have a lot of restaurants on the show, and of course, it's great food down here. New York is hard. I'm from New York, and like every corner, there's a spot with good pizza, good Chinese food.
Oh, you can never see them all.
I thought you got into these like bougie restaurants, though. You were just like, sure, I'm gonna just get on.
I mean, it's funny because I have these conversations with my cooks all the time. I've a cook that I recently sent to New York, and I mean, honestly, it came down. Like I never asked how much I was getting paid. I never asked what the hours were. Like I wanted. I mean,
I want to learn. And
can we talk to that in more detail? Because often I find that everyone just goes after the money. They chase it, and then the result is they don't get the opportunities because they try to get hired and they're selling themselves too much. But you just referenced like it was never about the money. You just went in. So how did you really do that? Like, did you call up? Did you ask a friend for a referral? And then like when you started working, like how did you kind of get further along within the restaurant?
So I kind of jumped a step. When I first moved to New York, like I was sleeping on a friend's couch, but before that friend came and told me that they were hiring at 11 Madison Park, like I said, I moved to New York to work at WD-50.
Right.
So it was about, I think, 26 days in a row in the snow. I went there with a resume, paper printed resume, and waited for somebody to show up. It's like the it's funny
That's
because
hustle.
years
Good for
later,
you, because so often like no one
does
will
that.
do that, but you could still do that to this day.
I didn't get hired.
No one
weren't
does that.
hiring.
Everyone
Yeah.
just throws resumes up on Indeed,
And they're like,
and everyone just waits and said, "There's no jobs, no one's reaching out," or I submit 300 applications. Like, well, if you're doing that, it's not working. Like, have to change the formula.
No, I went there with my knives. Like I was ready to work. Like every single day. Like
So how long did it
really
take? 26 days.
Well, no, I mean it didn't work after 26 days. Like
Oh.
that's when I was like, okay, I have to.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, I already stopped paying my phone bill. I already, you know.
Yeah, yeah. Oh,
So
wow.
you know, and I was just bumming it on my friend's couch. So
Yeah.
you know, so yeah,
Nice
once I
friend.
had to find something, that's when you know he basically told me that the chef, a new chef came in,
Okay.
fired all half the sous chefs, sent the other half home to shave, and you know and fired half the kitchen crew. So they were
Wow.
hiring, and I was like, well, that sounds like a good first.
That was
I was
perfect
19 at the time,
timing.
so yeah, exactly. It was for me. It was like this is an experience I want to have, just to have it, you know, and it turned out to be. You know, again, if I was looking for the money, I didn't know what I was getting paid, like $12 an hour.
Yeah.
And this is after at the time, like a $55,000 culinary school bill, you know?
Yeah.
And, but that's what I wanted to do. So it wasn't even like there was a question about it. It was like, this is.
So how did you like afford to live in New York City then? Like, was your friend just letting you continue to live on his couch, or like with that, did you have side jobs or like help from
I couldn't. I mean,
family?
I was working like 80 hours a week. I couldn't really
Yeah.
have a side job, but
Yeah.
but my ex, who I was there with,
Yeah.
like we moved there together. So
Yeah.
I was staying with my friend on his couch, and then
Okay.
she had a friend whose couch she was staying on. And so at some point, we did find an apartment together in Bed-Stuy.
Because I think you have to have like a roommate at that point or something.
Yeah.
It's impossible.
Well,
Yeah.
somehow we found like a $700 a month
Oh wow.
apartment, not an apartment, but a room in an apartment. Obviously that's very reasonably priced,
Yeah.
but I did get, it was a little troublesome.
Yeah.
You know, I was definitely harassed numerous times. I got robbed at gunpoint with my mom on the phone, with my cell phone, and then they took my cell phone, scared the crap out of my mom.
This is before Brooklyn was like hip.
Yeah, this is Bed-Stuy.
Yeah, I was about to
Yeah,
say, like,
Bed-Stuy. It was
Yeah,
like
yeah,
it's still not a good
Well,
neighborhood.
I mean, I've hung out in Bed-Stuy a bunch of times, but like my
Maybe
friend used to
you've
have
been
me
a little
work-
naive. It's dangerous, certain parts of it.
I mean, like a
And
couple.
also, you're not going there sometimes. Like when he gets out of a restaurant,
Yeah.
Exactly.
well,
That's
12
like
at
4 in
night
the
or
morning.
1 in the morning, and like, you know, he's getting off a subway and he's all
True,
by
true.
himself, right? Versus like with a group of 10, 15
Yeah.
people at times.
Yeah. But for me, that was, I mean, at that point in my life, like I said, I was 19. You know, I always just wanted to travel. I always wanted to see other things. And you know, when I was living in Florida, I desperately wanted to get out of Florida just because I had seen a lot of Florida already. You know, so for me, like that was all just part of the experience. You know, I didn't. I mean, no, I didn't. I'm not saying I was smiling when I had a gun in my face, but it was just, you know, I feel like this is almost just supposed to happen to a white guy living in this neighborhood. You know what I mean? Like walking through this neighborhood
Stuff
at this
you see on
hour of the day.
television.
Yeah, you kind of expect it. It's like I wasn't taking any precaution, you know, any precautionary measures to avoid it. So I'm still here. I'm alive, you know.
Well, they know you were good with knives.
yeah. Unfortunately, I didn't have my knives on me, but it would have taken me too
What
long.
happened?
Well, I kept
You
them at
just
the
give
restaurant.
him yourself? No, I mean like.
Oh, I think I had like
you
probably
just gave him
$30.
everything.
I think I had $30. I did have to like kind of I argued with him a little bit about letting me keep my my driver's license. I was like, come on, man, you don't need my wallet. Like,
Yeah.
So I had like $30 and and then as they were leaving, because one of the friends of the kid that had the gun, he's like, oh, get his phone. I'm like, I literally told him, like, I'm on the phone with my mom right now, guys.
Oh,
And they're like, give me your phone. And they just grabbed it.
Wow.
And I was like, yeah, it was pretty. And so that was this. I remember I went to.
the phone's the most expensive thing you had, of course.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Those iPhones are $1,000. Let's say. Yeah.
Oh no, it wasn't.
Back
an iPhone.
then, I
was
feel
like
like it
that was
wasn't
like
an
that was like a
iPhone.
flip.
2005,
Yeah.
but the flips were still a lot of
It's
money.
like a razor phone.
Motorola back then, yeah.
No, but the worst part was I had to go borrow like whatever 25 cents to use a payphone.
Yeah.
You know, call my mom back.
It was actually worse back then, because back then it was like you lost all your contacts.
Oh yeah.
Right, nowadays, like everything's stored in the iCloud.
Yeah.
Back then with the flip phones, like you were screwed.
Yeah.
I remember when my phone like fell in water once. It's like game over.
I know.
It
took
different
years
world.
for
Hard
people,
to get a phone back again, and then contacts.
Yeah.
It was a different world back then. 05.
Yeah. But that was, you know, if that was like that time for me, you know, whether it was, you know, the neighborhood I was living in or the restaurant, or, you know, it was really like I was young. I wanted to kind of get those things out of my system. I wanted to experience those certain types of things, you know, like I love Madison Park. That was the type of place that stuff got thrown at you, sometimes your own knife, you know. So it was like that very intense, I guess, chef training
expectations.
Yeah,
you know, the bar was set up here, and you were not hitting those things daily. Like they were going to tell you.
But I kind of liked it. Like it's kind of sick. Like it's one of those things you kind of like.
That's what you got. That's why you went to New York.
Yeah, exactly.
To get punched. Yeah. And so, what shifted you down to South Florida, and when did that occur?
Well, after let's see, there was 11 Madison Park. Then I ended up getting a job at WD-50 because I had ended up I had a friend that ended up getting me in there. So then I was at WD-50, both for about a year and a half, both of those restaurants. And then I opened up a restaurant called Marea as the executive sous chef with a friend of mine that I knew from 11 Madison. And Marea ended up, that was my first management job. So I was very young. I was always the youngest person in the kitchen. I think I was 23 at Marea. Oh. And we ended up getting a Michelin star first year, 2 Michelin stars our second year, won all the James Beard Awards you could and all that. And then I left to go to Hong Kong because essentially I was ready to leave New York. I was tired of just the city,
the grind, the hustle.
Honestly, it wasn't the grind. It wasn't like because I still do that here. You know, I
understand what you're saying.
That was ingrained in me, but it was more of like the fact that I couldn't, you know, it was the nature thing. You know, I grew up going to the beach like every day here. I grew up fishing, surfing. And
I'm with you because I was born in the suburbs, and then I lived in New York City for about 10 years, and I was just done with it. I was like, enough of just, you know, walking everywhere. I just want to drive somewhere. I just want to drive to the beach. I didn't want to drive an hour to the beach and then deal with like Jones Beach or Long Beach or the Jersey Shore traffic. And you're like, I just want to go 5 minutes to the beach and park somewhere and just walk out. Right. So I understand what you mean.
Yeah. So it got to that for me, and New York got to that stage where it's like, you know what, I feel like I did get what I needed to out of this. I feel like because at that point I would work at, 3 very successful restaurants, 1, 2, and what came to be 3 Michelin star restaurants. So I feel like they were very different experiences. It wasn't like it was all the same. So I felt like I got a lot done it was like 7 or 8 years that I was there. And I was also kind of casually dating a girl that used to like backpack around the world. She spent like a year just like kind of wandering around Southeast Asia, and so there was like those ideas in my head. And I was also thinking like, well, this is the age to do it. So I put in my notice with my my chef who was actually my best friend, and I was actually sleeping on his couch because I ended up going through a breakup as Marea was opening, and so that was part of the deal. If he wanted me to be a sous chef, he had to give me a place to stay. So yeah, and what started off as giving my notice, my 6 months notice, it turned into, well, actually, we're working on some restaurants in Asia right now. Would you want to, go do that? So, and I went and I opened up a restaurant in Hong Kong, other side of the world, serious language barriers and all sorts of challenges. But that was probably the most challenging time in general of my life.
Can you share with our audience just, the shock when you arrived, right? It's a whole different culture. I know we could probably have an hour
I was
talk
excited
just about Hong Kong, but like just talk about like your first 2 weeks, let's say.
I mean, the first 2 weeks was fun because like when I first got there, there's just so much to see. You're going to places where you have like the wet markets, and like you just see all this crazy seafood, and they love live seafood. So you're going places where it's like, live, like sepia like this, that change color when you touch them. And it's, just like that sort of stuff was really cool. Like that was, and that I had a few months, the first few months, I was working a lot, but I would go in the mornings before work or, whenever I could. and just kind of explore around. So that what got bad, or when it got bad, I guess was it was like a few months in. Granted, I did go about, I think, 3 or 4 months without a day off, but I didn't care about, it's not the I never minded that, but it was more of the, I guess, once I started to understand that the reason I was there for was not exactly what I understood to begin with, you know. It wasn't really a chef driven restaurant group. They weren't really focused on quality, like, like Michael White was. That's who I was working for in New York. All of his restaurants, he was a chef, and the restaurants were successful because he was doing his thing, and this was definitely not that. It was, we didn't have this, I didn't have the support to be able to do the level of quality. And for me, this was my first like chef job that I was in charge. It was my first real chef job. So I was taking it very seriously. And it was almost like once those things started to collide, once I started to realize, like, look, I'm not going to be able to do what I'm not able to do the best I can. That's when I started to take it really hard, and I just started having, it started hitting me mentally. Like I would have like anxiety attacks a lot and stuff like that. And I was trying.
And you're in a different country.
Exactly.
I was like, you're like, hey, I'm in New York. I just switch.
Right. Even making a phone call is hard because like you're 13 hours apart, so you have to time it up. But yeah. And there was a point, I mean, obviously I had tons of support from the New York team, but after a few months, it's like, okay, he's doing his thing. He's good. And, priorities change a little bit, so yeah, it was, I mean, all in all, it was a good experience. I'm not upset that I did it, but there's definitely days, some of the toughest days I've had since then. I can look back and what?
Not that
it's
bad.
Not Hong Kong.
No. What was your next chapter after Hong Kong? When did you come back? What year?
That was 2012. I came back. And then at that point I was burnt out from the corporate world. I kind of decided like, I wanted to get back cooking. I was 25 or 26. And I was,
because you were all managing all of that, right?
Yeah, it was more of like a clipboard chef job, and like, I mean, I spent most of my days, I was just creating special menus and costing stuff out and inventory and all that stuff, and it was like, I wasn't cooking. There'd be days that would go by and it'd be like, this is not what I love to do. This is not why I got into it. So after Hong Kong, I went back to New York. Actually, I skipped the part, kind of important part, but at Marea, the last restaurant I was at in New York, I met my now wife. We were casually dating, and she ended up coming out to Hong Kong about 4 months after I was out there. So we've been together since then. So when I left Hong Kong, she was with me. So we came back to New York and settled things up with Michael White and Amos, the owners of the Ultimate Marea Group, who I was working for, because they also had a lot of questions. The great people, great people to work for. They really wanted to have a good understanding of what went wrong, what went right, and all that. So I settled things up with them, and then we traveled around. We spent like I think 2 months between like Mexico, Puerto Rico, pretty much any beach we could find that we could sit back and have a beer and just chill out on. We went camping for like 3 weeks in Mexico on a beach, like just like in a teepee, and then we went to go visit my brother in California, in LA. This is my first time ever being to LA. I'd been to Northern California prior to that. But I was not expecting to like LA. I just had like, and in New York, like we had sayings about cooks from LA. They were just always slow. They were on LA time, no offense to any of my good friends out in LA, but so we ended up loving it out there. We were visiting my brother, and we didn't really, our initial plan, I think, was to move to Hawaii after that, because that was just, we could, and we wanted to just go there and find a job, and sound
like everyone thinks that, like, the beach,
why
Hawaii.
not? Yeah,
why not?
But we ran out of money, so we stayed in LA, and I just got a job at a restaurant my brother was working at, small farm to table, like market driven restaurant. They pick up their food from the market, then they go pick up their fish from the fish market. They cook it. It's open kitchen, so you're actually serving people. That was my first time ever actually working in a place where you could see the reactions when people are eating your food, and that's a big deal because usually I'm in the back of the kitchen, so you're just going by, you're getting the thing that people send back, this
Yeah,
is
that was
undercooked.
similar to the place I was telling you that I worked, the open kitchen.
Yeah,
just
yeah.
hand it to you right there. And yeah.
It has a really big impact. I mean, I know I couldn't believe I never experienced that before when that was happening, because it's like, this is like really.
That was like new back then though. Like now it's
That's
more
true. Yeah.
common,
Yeah.
like,
There was a period where everyone wanted the open kitchens. That was like a
Yeah.
really big thing,
yeah.
whether there was lack of trust or for whatever reason. But yeah, it's called Canale. It's just a small, very small, I think probably 20, 30 seats. And I was getting paid, I was getting paid fairly for what I was doing, but I was probably bringing about $300 a week. I didn't care. It's one of those things like, you know what? My wife was working at a restaurant too, probably getting paid about the same, and we could make it work. We were very simple people. We didn't really need much until she got pregnant. Then we had to figure out, we had to figure something real out. So I was just a friend of mine was in the process of putting together a restaurant called Sonny's Hideaway in Highland Park, like a small, like kind of speakeasy vibes, gastropub type food. So I put initially it was supposed to be like a consulting thing, just kind of setting up the menu and hiring and kind of sorting things out. But I ended up staying there for about 2 years. Year and a half, I think, about a year and a half, until my son was about 6 months old, and we decided we needed to be around family, because anyone with kids, if it's literally just, two people is not enough to raise a kid,
it's hard
comfortably.
it's expensive these days. Absolutely.
Yeah. So
because if you're both going to work and you have to hire someone, before they enter school, like everyone forgets, like kindergarten will come, right? But before kindergarten, right, you have to send them to nursery school.
Exactly. Or
it's
something.
It's $1,000 to $1,500 a month, but lots of times that's only half a day or 9 to 3, right? You need help and support, or stay-at-home mother, right?
Exactly.
That could do it. So completely understand where you're coming from.
And our son was the first grandkid on both sides, so there was also that sort of pressure from our parents. So we ended up moving back. That's what got us back to Florida, or that was what I guess got us thinking about coming back to Florida. I was speaking with somebody about this was the Royal Blues Hotel in Deerfield Beach. So this was right around the time, like, I actually moved here to be opening that up. I forget the exact year that was, but that didn't end up panning out. Just things didn't work out. After about 3 weeks, it was clear that wasn't the right direction for me. So, because again, like, it just didn't feel right. And I've always been, like I said, like, the first job I ever had that I asked how much I was getting paid was when I was moving across the country or across the world to Hong Kong. Before that, it was like, if this is what I want to do, if this is what feels right to me, then I'm going to do it, and so, so then here I am. We drove across the country in a Volkswagen Jetta, my wife, my 6-month-old son, and our little Chihuahua at the time, Taquito. So we literally drove with 3 weeks notice. We spent all of our money doing that, and a down payment on an apartment or whatever, just deposit on an apartment and just getting settled. And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, well, now we don't have a job. So I called a friend of mine, Giovanni Rocchio, that I knew from New York. He used to stage around in New York at all the high-end restaurants. That's how he just kept in touch with people. That's kind of how he staffed his restaurant down in Fort Lauderdale. And so I called him, and he was like, yeah, I could use some help. So I didn't think I was going to be okay with commuting that far, but it ended up being great. And, Giovanni's a great friend of mine to this day. I spoke with him like last week. And so that was at Valentino in Fort Lauderdale. So I actually ended up replacing the chef de cuisine that I replaced at Valentino was the same person that replaced me at Marea when I left New York, as ironic as that is. Luke Bergman, very talented chef that actually.
Well, this is like the 6th borough down here, right?
Yeah, so, kind of, yeah.
Everyone up there, like, they ship back and forth so often, right?
Yeah.
So it makes sense.
So yeah, and then at Valentino, that's when I had, I mean, Giovanni is great. He was honestly the only person I trusted, as far I interviewed with a lot of people. I spoke with a lot of restaurant owners, a lot of chefs, both corporate and very and independent, but it was just so sketchy. And what you would see in Miami and even like Fort Lauderdale scene, like in the way the restaurants operate there, like I just did not want to be a part of that. Nothing seemed secure. Nothing seemed like trustworthy. So I just was like, you know what, like Giovanni didn't pay great, I'll be honest. But I already told you what pay really means to me. It's definitely not at the top of my list. So so I was kind of always looking for that reason. I was always kind of looking for something else for like something else that would kind of make more sense for me. But at the end of the day, it was like, why am I doing this when I can't trust anyone? And I really trust Gio. Like I said, he's a great friend of mine. I trust him and I can make this work. And I was comfortable enough there, and I was able to give myself the time for my wife and I to be able to start working on what is now Driftwood. So it did allow us, like there was like that 6-month period where it allowed us to be able to kind of focus on our own thing. And then
so for Driftwood, are you like the full owner or like?
I guess the bank would be.
Yeah. but yeah, like you don't have any like partners or anything.
We have some family involved.
Okay.
Like throughout the years, my wife and I, because we'd both been working in restaurants since we were 15.
Yeah.
So we had learned, we at least seen the common reasons why restaurants fail.
Yeah.
And that's usually the landlord, number one, or number two, the partners. There's usually one of those two things just don't fail or don't work out at some point. So, with what made Driftwood's location really special when we came across it was the land was for sale.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, we didn't have money to buy the land, mm-hmm. but we were able to figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And we were able to figure it out without big partners.
Mm-hmm.
We have some family involved, like I said, but anyone that is involved with Driftwood is very much we made it very clear that the final decision goes through us.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's technicality, we're technically but we don't the way that me and my wife operate, like we're if we're gonna have partners, it needs to be like we need to be able to really trust and understand each other, and it's more so than just the financial aspect of it. And but we have a friend of mine named Freddie Schwenk. He did help us with the bar program, and he did help us through some very early on financial situations to become a partner early in the game. But aside from that, it's family, and it's not easy that way.
Yeah.
What we're going to do is we're going to showcase your restaurant right now on the TV. So everybody listening live and in the future.
I was going to say, what is the Cuisine?
We're going to show everyone it. So here you go.
For people listening.
Yeah. We kind of, the big thing with Driftwood is we didn't want to restrict ourselves to a specific cuisine.
Okay.
We wanted it to be able to evolve as it made sense.
Mm-hmm.
So, my training, I definitely have plenty of classic French, lots of Italian, the Marea and Owwll, the restaurant in Hong Kong, those were both Italian, especially, Italian seafood or coastal Italian focused.
That looks good.
I kind of, I don't like being restricted. I do. That's when that questionnaire, I checked off every single cuisine.
Yeah.
Every box for all the foods. It's like, I'm sorry, I like food.
Yeah.
And I like to be able to, I don't.
Well, I think it's nice to also.
Ooh, this looks good. What is this?
That looks like a spaghetti with clams, like a spaghetti vongole.
I think it's nice to have the variety so that there's something for everyone on the menu. It's kind of.
Yeah, and it changes up, that right there, that's the sweet and sour cauliflower. That originated as like a. We were making a vegan cauliflower steak and all the little bits kept falling off. So we, when we had too many pickled, we started, doing a sweet and sour cauliflower, and that's our biggest seller for the last 4 years now. It's been our biggest seller.
What is this thing right here?
That's been on the menu since we opened. That is the warm cornbread.
Ooh.
So it's a
Can't look.
it's a really good cornbread recipe. and we kind of crisp it up in a little butter. We toast it in a little butter, and then it's buttermilk ice cream and some wild blueberries on top. So yeah, we kind of do a little bit of everything. We really do focus on, as much as possible, anything that's local and good, not just local, but it has to be the good local products. That's usually where we prioritize, or how we prioritize things is, we look at what's readily available around us from our farmers, our fishermen, our producers around us. And then what do we want to do with it? We definitely aren't thinking a specific cuisine, or which is hard. I remember when I started working in Italian restaurants, it was very hard for me, because I was coming from a restaurant like WD-50 where you're making carrot and coconut sunny side up eggs. So where I had to kind of come up with tricks on how do you make this Italian. Sometimes we'd come up with really great dishes, but they weren't Italian, so you'd have to throw a cipollini onion, or something to make it Italian on there.
And are you open for lunch and dinner?
We're not. No, we open at 4, so we're open from 4 to 9 Wednesday through Sunday. It is kind of unique hours, but it's a unique area, and it's something
Drinks look good too.
The cocktails, we definitely, we make our own tonic, we make our own ginger beer that we have on tap.
Ooh, yeah, that's
we make everything in house. That's kind of like.
Is the bar vibe there more of kind of quiet, fine, more dining, or is it if I went with friends, we could get rowdy?
Absolutely, you could definitely go with friends. Yeah, I would not call it quiet.
Yeah. Okay. 'Cause it looks kind of fancy,
but it's not going to be like a club.
Yeah. But I could go and be kind of loud.
Yourself, yeah. We want everyone. We want people to be able to be themselves anywhere in the restaurant. That's a big thing. We never wanted it to be. We didn't want that formal feeling. We didn't want that uptight anything. The idea was to be able to serve the food that's from my training that I was kind of trained to do, right? 1, 2, 3 Michelin star level restaurants. The same thought process, the same level of ingredients, the same quality. The stuff that goes into it. Sometimes we will take 3 months creating a dish. Sometimes it just takes that long for us to really piece it all together. So we invest a lot into everything that we do. But
I'm excited. I'm moving to Boynton in a few weeks, so I'm yay!
Well, you better come check us out.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, we want to be the neighborhood spot. It was that, because I grew up. This is my backyard where I grew up. And there was a big part of why I needed to leave Florida was the fact that there was no good chefs or good restaurants. There was nothing for me to kind of farther my career, my education, what I wanted to get out of it. So we wanted to kind of be a place where you can have that. I'm very big on mentoring young cooks. We actually have 2 high school students that have been working with us for about 2 years now. One's going to be going to the CIA next month. The other one's going to be going a few months behind her.
Nice.
I have one of my cooks that we got. He was working at McDonald's, or very not McDonald's, but super casual type place. And he started with us, worked with us for 3 years, and now he's working at 2 Michelin star restaurant in New York. And he's planning on going to France, planning on traveling around. So that's what really nowadays that is so much more fulfilling than creating a really awesome dish. If I want to be able to do my part, I guess, in providing those sorts of resources for people, for people.
That's why you're perfect on the app. You'll get on our we have mentorship Mondays where all the professionals lower their price to $1.
Good segue. There it is.
People can you go live, and people from all walks of life can call you, get advice, mentorship, whatever, any questions they might have on the restaurant industry or anything.
And I love to say I'm always an open book. I have no problem sharing anything that I know with anyone. If you start your job at Driftwood, you have access to every single one of our recipes that we've ever created.
Yeah.
I'm not worried that somebody's going to go and
steal the same. Yeah.
Trust me. It takes a lot more than a recipe to do this, especially nowadays.
Yeah. Well, I think it's cool though that I'm sure over the years you've seen just South Florida develop, and I love living here because I feel like it has the feel of a smaller beach town, but you still get a lot of international people, and I feel like even Del Rey, there's some really nice high-end restaurants that might feel like you're in New York, but you're still in
Yeah.
like this beach town. So I don't know if it was like that back then, but that's one of
Oh
the
no,
things that
no, it's definitely
it's
changed.
changed. And that's one
Yeah.
of the things that really drew me to like living here is like where I was in LA before, but it was so huge and everything's so far away. You still get that like beach, but it's just
Yeah.
smaller. So
Well, that's a big part of why I felt like it was okay to open my restaurant.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know, like I know it wasn't until probably 2 years before we moved back
Mhm.
here that was even a thought in my head.
Mhm.
You know, just because like I mean, I have a picture. My dad paved Atlantic Avenue. You know, like
Okay,
I
wow.
have a picture of me 1 years old on the paver.
Oh my
You
god.
know, I got my first haircut when I was like probably 2 or 3 on Atlantic Avenue. My
Yeah.
grandmother, you know, I used to go. You know, it was not what it
What
is
it is.
today.
No.
You know, it was very, very different.
Wow.
And you're in a great location. Boynton Beach is on the up.
It was
right?
up and
Everyone
coming.
knows
Yeah.
that Del Rey has spiked it with costs, right? And of course, Boca's always been expensive, but Boynton Beach has really revamped a lot of their main street. I lived in Costa Costa for a little
Okay,
bit,
yeah.
and right on the waterway, they've redone a lot of the waterway there. There's boats that come in and out of there all the time, charter boats. If you want to take one out with your family, for example, I've done it before. But a lot of the restaurants over there, like that main drag, they've really revamped City Hall.
Yeah.
I'm taking tours of it, and they're putting restaurants in City Hall right in that little lower
Yeah.
section. And it's beautiful. Most people don't even know that exists over there by City Hall and then the open field. So you have a good opportunity to capture a lot of the people moving down to Boynton Beach. Like her parents just moved to out west by the canyons over there. So
Okay.
there's just so many more people moving, and then they're all going to go east, of course, try out new restaurants.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And
sense.
again, like it wouldn't like that's as that slowly started to happen, as we kind of saw this slowly happening, and you know, Boynton was honestly Boynton's more my vibe than Delray, you know,
Yeah.
at least Delray now, you know,
Yeah.
so, you know, I mean, obviously when we were first looking, the first place we looked in this area was Atlantic Ave, you know, what, you know, we're looking at restaurant spaces, we're looking at what's
Sure.
available. And it was ridiculous, you know, I mean,
Absolutely.
not that it was, I don't want to say unfair or anything, but it was just not, it didn't make sense for us. You know, it was to the point where you're forced to kind of, or in my opinion, I guess, if we would have gone that route with finding the space on Atlantic Avenue, we essentially would have been forced to do whatever it takes to pay the rent.
Yeah.
You know,
Absolutely.
and that's not what I want. You know,
Absolutely.
like that's not what I ever wanted.
Yeah.
No, you don't want that pressure either. Like
Yeah,
the
exactly.
rent, and a lot of times you're signing a 5-year agreement to break a lease. A lot of
Yeah.
times you have to do 1 year to break the lease, and all of a sudden you're like, wait, I got to put up $100,000 to get out of this lease, for example.
Yeah.
A lot of pressure in Delray. Everyone
Yeah.
wants to be there right now. They know there's a lot of foot traffic, but it comes with a big responsibility, of course. So what we're going to do now is we're going to segue. I found someone that happens to be in Delray Beach, Florida, right down the block from your restaurant. So I figured let's call her. And you know, the cool thing about this app is sometimes you're just calling people saying hello. She's a doctor. Oh no, I was on her screen for too long. I think she's not available anymore. We're gonna have to find someone new. I kind of stalled out, so we're gonna have to pick someone else. So who shall we pick? I was trying to pick someone local, so that way they could swing by his restaurant. Let's see if there's any Floridians on the app right now.
She's a Brooklyn person. Could be interesting.
Boca Raton. Yeah, let's call Sabrina. And Sabrina runs a female community. So a lot of times they're looking for restaurants to host events. For example, when your restaurant's closed, and they come in and operate, of course.
Do you do a lot of private events, or
we've definitely been doing a lot more over the last year or so.
Mhm.
You know, my first boss, the country club that I started when I was 15. He's been
Hello.
Hey, Sabrina, it's Jason Hill. You're live on the Owwll podcast. How's everything going?
It's going so good. How are you?
We're doing well. We're here with the owner of Driftwood, a restaurant in Boynton Beach, Florida. Have you been there by chance? We'll start with that.
I have not.
I have
Tell
not
me all
either.
about it.
Well, Jimmy, tell her quickly about it, and then Sabrina will want you to ask him a question if that's cool with you. And you are being recorded, and this is streaming live, so I just want to make sure that is okay with you. Is that cool?
Absolutely.
Cool. Jimmy, floor's all yours. Tell her a little bit about Driftwood.
Hi, Sabrina.
Hey.
So yeah, we're I mean, I like to say small, but medium size, you know, restaurant that's just myself and my wife, owner operated. We I guess mom and pop, but I'm a 39-year-old pop. So not necessarily, still we have fun. We love cooking. We love just having fun with fresh local ingredients. I mean, we make everything in house. We make all of our own fresh pastas, breads, burger buns, desserts.
Sabrina, check out his feed. If you look at the Owwll app on social media, he's the last post, and then just click his handle on the post, Driftwood.
I was actually looking him up online.
He's gently, nicely saying this stuff, but when you look at the food and his bio, you'll see it looks absolutely amazing, and your mouth might water
I
like mine and
absolutely love
Danielle.
that.
We
How
haven't been
long have
able to
you
do the podcast. We're just like looking at the food and like we're like, we need to go there.
I love that. How long have you been in business?
A little over 6 years.
No kidding.
Wait, have you
How
driven
have I
past
never
us a
heard
lot?
this?
Yeah.
Is this like,
He's
do
in
you
the
have to get
upper-
dressed up, or is it more casual?
No, it's casual. I mean, it's both. We definitely have people. I mean, with people sometimes in shorts and flip flops, sitting next to somebody in, full on suit. That happens.
I love that.
Yeah.
Is this a lifelong dream? Whose dream was this?
Myself and my wife. And yeah, I think dreams can evolve, but yeah, I mean, it was, I guess, for the last 10 years or so, it was 10 years ago is when my wife and I kind of decided that we wanted to kind of have our own restaurant. We've both been working in restaurants since we were 15, so it's kind of all we know. We worked in high-end restaurants in New York City. That's where we met, and then traveled around, also working in restaurants between Hong Kong and Los Angeles, and back to where I grew up, which is Boynton Beach, pretty much. So that's
wow. Is this the original location, or did you guys slowly move up?
No, it's the original.
Wow.
Yeah, we took over. It was a diner called Scully's. So it was kind of like a slow, like a work in progress for us, because we bought the property. So and like, we're not part of a big company, so we could not always afford things to be perfect. So we kind of did a lot of stuff ourselves as we could afford to, but we always just focused on the the quality, and those are certain things that we weren't willing to kind of compromise. So sometimes there was some paint chipping off the walls, but we're making sure we're buying the best possible products we can. That was like kind of my approach for a few years. But over the few years, we've definitely grown and evolved, and we do have a full bar, a cocktail program with kind of like the same thought process as the food. Like I was saying earlier, we make our own ginger beer that we serve on tap. We make our own tonic.
Oh my God.
We infuse a lot of our own spirits and stuff like that. A lot of local products. We do a lot, like right now. It's a lot of tropical fruits coming around. So
mango season.
Yeah, mangoes are coming.
Sabrina, you coming with me and Ellie to dinner? We're gonna go next week. You coming?
Dude, it looks freaking phenomenal. I'm on his Instagram feed right now. It looks so good.
Now you know why it's been difficult for us to do this podcast today. We just keep looking at the food.
Okay, wait. Last question. Why Driftwood? Why did you name it Driftwood?
Ooh,
that's could be a long answer. Well, honestly, like it's something that I kind of touched on earlier. We wanted to make sure that it was something that did not restrict us. So, because again, knowing that we were buying the property, this is a very long-term thing that we had in our heads, at least. So we were trying to think of a name that made sense, that was not 5 syllables, something that was kind of, easy to remember, and something that didn't restrict us. So we didn't want it to be like, you see that and, oh, it's got to be Italian food, or, oh, that's got to be French, or that's got to be something, and then it took us about a month of just like going back and forth. And I actually proposed to my wife on a big piece of driftwood in Tulum, Mexico, on that 2-month hiatus. I was saying we were
how this all makes sense. Why this would be a long story.
So it all kind of, and it was like, I guess there's not a word. My wife's from Puerto Rico, so we had a conversation where it's like, oh, how do you say this? And it's like floating wood,
Yeah.
But so that was always like so
Your
it was like
thing.
one day, like when we were trying to think of the name, she was like, what was that word for that wood that floats? And I was like, driftwood. And then we just stopped and we're like, that's it.
That's awesome.
That's it.
That's so cool.
I
Yeah.
freaking love that.
that's
Well,
such a cute
congratulations on all the success.
Thank you. Hope to see you soon.
Well, Sabrina,
Yes, absolutely.
thank you for joining us on the Owwll podcast. Always
Of
appreciate it.
course.
Later.
Yes. Thanks for calling, Jason.
Later.
Bye.
Okay. Jimmy, that was your first Owwll call. Now we get to
All
leave
right.
Sabrina a review. Of course, we weren't asking her that many questions, but we'll put great call. But that's the power of the technology. It's really just connecting with people. No different like when you got to New York.
It's
You're
really
like, I got to
cool, like-
connect with people and just make stuff happen.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, think if like in those early restaurant days when you were on the couch, you could pull out Owwll and search like restaurant chef, and you could call somebody. They were on Mentorship Monday. Hey, I just moved here. I'm literally like, I'll work for anything. Like it would have
Yeah.
been a great.
Oh, of course,
resource,
yeah.
So
Well, it's like when I first got like on Instagram and all
Yeah.
that, like I would
course.
start, I'm like, wow, I can actually like look at like, cause you'd see like chefs and restaurants where
Yeah.
like I used to have to wait and save up my money to buy their cookbook, wait
Mm,
for them to make the cookbook.
mm,
Now you're seeing what they did last night,
yeah.
and that was like a game changer for, that. I mean,
and this is who you spoke to, by the way. So look how cool this
Yeah.
is. Like she's a past TEDx speaker, founder of Her Nation, creator of Her Mastermind. And then we could see all the different things. 5 years podcasting, interviewed 600 plus female guests. So as you can imagine, like a lot of times people go in technologies and just think like, what is the sale? Like, is someone buying from me? Right. But often it's collaboration, which is the bigger part of this app. Like you just spoke to someone who has a huge pool of female, guests that have been on her show, 35,000 followers, and all these podcasts that she's completed. So she could just say, hey, I'm going to go to this restaurant. And then before you know it, she's like, hey, could I do an event at your restaurant? Or just talk about it, just naturally post, of course. So there's just so many,
Yeah, she hosts
collaborations.
networking events and different things too. So
that's the power of the app, is just like the old days, just communicating and seeing where conversations go. Not always, worrying about
shared
the
resources.
metrics, not about the
Yes.
metrics. Everyone's so attached to metrics today on social
Yeah.
media, like, posting, going viral, or this is just, the metrics are reviews. But other than that, it's just, just having good old conversations.
Yeah, because I feel like for me looking through, it's going to be very different than what you might be looking through, or somebody else.
Yeah.
There's going to be
Yeah.
different things that stand out and different things that kind of make
Oh,
sense.
of course. And you could type in chef in the top, and bring up other chefs. And, of course, you could filter down and you could say, okay, well, is there any chefs in the state of Florida? Right. And you could try to find out if there's folks like Eric, great example. He was on my other podcast, The Shrimp Tank, and he has Floor Scotch, right? And they just entered the South Florida market, right? And then before you know it, it's like you guys can connect and be like, stop by my restaurant.
Yeah.
Right. And he's trying to create relationships with more restaurant owners down in South Florida, but really connect to a lot of people in actually New York. He's forget the brand, but one of the top 5 vodka brands is his partner behind the scenes. And he's the first veteran owned Scotch brand in the world. And then you have Eric Peterson. You probably know this restaurant, Evo Italian.
Yep.
He's big, a little further north, but you kind of see the point, right? The point is you get in there and talk to like-minded individuals. But additionally, you could say, hey, I just need, to connect with people about marketing, right? You're trying to get more people through the front doors, right? And you just want to talk to somebody about creating Facebook ads, right? And then you have Adam Nelson, who happens to live in Delray Beach, and he runs a marketing agency, Little Blue Plane, right? So example is like, for everyone out there, like we all need help in different things. And the app just enables you to kind of connect instantly without waiting around. You just call anyone who's available, of course, like that. So
yeah, I'm definitely, I just got onto it last night when I was getting on, but I was just looking through between last night and this morning. I was like, I wish we had something like this sooner.
Yeah.
It's definitely it's a very useful tool,
Yeah. And of course, like if there's someone that you do want to talk to and they're not live, there's a little button you can click. They'll get a text message that says
like requesting.
Yeah, requesting.
right there.
And it's cool because like I've reached out to people even like through Instagram and said like, hey, I would love to talk to you on the Owwll app. And I feel like it just shows them that you're more serious. Like I'm willing to pay you for your time, where like they might be getting 20 DMs, but they say, oh, this person wants to pay me for it. So like I'm going to prioritize them over the other 30 people that are DMing me. So it kind of helps, even if it's $1 or $5.
It's still like some sort of a boundary that I feel like you don't have on like Instagram or something like that,
Yeah. So
Okay, our last part of the show, Ellie, what is it?
Bet time. So I don't know if I know you said you watched some of the episodes. You might not have gotten this far into the show. Don't worry, it's not that scary. Basically, it's just a wager. We ask you to do something. If you complete that, you get something from us. If you don't complete it, we get something from you. So I'm going to make this easy. We already talked about this, about Mentorship Monday. Sounds like you might have off on Mondays because the restaurant is closed. I mean, you never have off really, but
Some Mondays, yeah.
So I don't know if you're free this Monday, but I'm just going to say basically I'm going to ask you to go live on the app this Monday for, let's say, 3 hours. So that doesn't mean you have to be actively like on calls for 3 hours, but just set your timer to 3 hours. Make sure that your ringer is on, and just see if you get calls. So yeah. And then we're just asking you, we'll check, make sure you're live for 3 hours. And then if you do that, then you get something from us. So it could be, I don't know, what could he get from us? You're in charge of.
We'll put a cap though. If he says 3 hours and he gets the more than, because to be fair, just in case, before you know it, it's like you get 10 different people calling. You're like, okay, that's a lot of calls. So we'll say
Maybe like
go
5
available
calls.
for 3 hours, but if you hit more than 5 calls, then
You
you could
can-
cap it and turn yourself offline.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to kill like a full 3 hours of your day on Monday.
Yeah.
Because 3 hours typically will mean 3 to 4 people will call you, to be fair, like 1 or 2 an hour.
I'm not expecting people to be flocking towards me, honestly. I don't think I'm quite that attractive, but
Oh, my wife is. There you go. She was
Well, you
calling.
never know. I mean, people get excited when someone new gets on the app, and we have a lot of like super fans and super users that just are always on, and they're like someone new, and they just love to call new people and network. So you
well,
never
I have
know.
no problem with it being a full 3 hours.
Eh.
Then I do have a few things going on, but I might have to pause it. Or
Well, yeah, we're just
skip around,
saying if you get to 5 calls and you want to log off, that's fine.
problem.
So okay, so if
Oh.
you do that, then I don't
What would
know.
you like to win? So if you complete the task, you could make up anything. You could make us promote you more on our Owwll app feed on social media or
Sure.
a newsletter.
I like that one. I like that one.
You could say, "Hey, try out this new restaurant. Not new restaurant, but check out this restaurant."
Or
that's
we could
local that's on the
even-
show. So we could obviously promote. We could promote. I got an idea that we will be there that night.
How about the?
I like
well,
that.
not that night because we're closed Monday.
But the night that we're going to go, like I'm saying, if you win, then on the newsletter, come join us. We're not paying.
Yeah,
for it,
maybe we could
but,
do
like,
like a
we-
networking.
we
Like
will be at the restaurant. And
Yeah.
if you happen to be in town, swing by for a drink or a
There we
bite.
go. That
we
works.
could
Right,
do
that's
like
fair.
a little like networky kind of thing
I
there.
think that's a fair deal.
That is
Yeah.
fair. Now, if you lose,
Isn't if I don't do it?
if
Yeah,
you don't do it, what do we get, Ellie? I think we
A
get
free meal.
a free meal.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Everything under the sun.
Free
We get to do a
meal.
tasting. I want a
Yeah.
tasting. That's the deal. A tasting. I want a tasting.
All right. No
Because
problem.
often what happens is I want everything on the menu, but I
I mean,
can
not
only order like a couple
everything.
I'm the
items.
same way, but then you get Florida portions, and it's like,
Yeah,
Oh.
we like
Do it.
small plates.
me too. Most of our menu small plates.
Oh,
We
cool.
definitely have
Oh, I
a
like
few
this already.
things that are kind of a little bit bulky, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But
Sure.
appropriately bulky.
Mhm.
But for the most, a lot of our menu it ends up being like the small plates or like 3/4 plates sort of thing. That
Okay.
size.
Cool.
Okay.
Sounds great.
It's a deal. Shake on it.
Alright.
Awesome.
You too,
Deal.
Shug.
Hey.
Okay. Well, Jimmy, thank you for joining us here on the Owwll podcast today. For our audience listening, of course, we were showing the Instagram handle, but what are the best routes to get in touch with you? What's the website? What's the social media handle? And of course, I want to call you right on Owwll app itself.
And you can call in. You can call anytime. And the social media, we have Eat Drink at Driftwood on Instagram, or Driftwood Boynton Beach on Facebook. Our website's driftwoodboynton.com.
Okay.
But usually, if you just ask Siri to look up Driftwood Boynton, it's usually gonna pull it up. That's usually what I do myself.
Perfect.
good.
And it's all connected right there. You see on his profile. He's got 0 followers. So go ahead and follow him. I was your first follower. And that will push out notifications to your followers, of course, to call you on Monday. So that wraps up today's episode on the Owwll podcast. We'll see everybody next week around 5 p.m., let's say. Take care.